pleasure for me to address you on InfoSec basics. I'll take you through the entire process of how one takes forward information security as a requirement for the banking sector, particularly the cooperative sector, so that you are able to get insight on that area. Let's take, for instance, the banking business in a cooperative sector. It's a set which involves some kind of products, some kind of services. Your environment, business environment, involves customers, you have your employees, and you have your stakeholders like vendors and others who actually support your product. Obviously, when you work on this, you are exposed to technology dependency on hardware that you use in the branch. You also depend on the application software that is put in this hardware. They could be in the location, or it could be in a data center or any other place. You also depend on the database that you are using in the process of doing that. The next thing that comes is when you interact with your customers, it could be face to face, it could be device dependent like ATM or payment processing tools, devices, or any other mobile dependent application services. It also depends on the internet, it also depends on the bandwidth and other factors that's going to play a serious role in providing this thing. All of this, when you put together, we call it as people dependency, process dependency, technology dependency in making an operation successful. Now, with all these things that's happening, there's always a challenge of insecurity. This insecurity could come from internal employees, it could come from the the vendors, it could come from the technologies, it could come from the customers. When I say the concern could be like ignorance, which means it can be unintentional threat, or it could be an intentional threat, which is also possible. But as a safeguard, even if one instance takes place in 1,000 instances, it can have a serious impact on the banking business and can affect tremendously. And therefore, it's very important to have a mechanism to change the banking environment from insecurity zone to a secure zone. To bring it to the secure zone, we work on multiple things. You look at controls. A control could be a preventive control, it could be a detective control, or it could be a corrective control. When we talk about corrective control, it's like business continuity, disaster recovery, those are all coming under contingency planning. The detective control is an incident takes place, you detect it, and then you try to fix it. A preventive control comes from a lot of planning in putting the banking operation in with the right perspective, right facilities, right tools, etc. People processes are governed by regulators, banking operations are governed by regulators, the technology has its own governed by laws and regulations and recommendations. So these are depending on some best practices. So as a branch, when we want to get into putting information security framework in place, one could adopt various framework which are available in the public domain. I'm not saying it's free, but they are available in the public domain. For instance, information security, the base practices come from Information Security Management System developed by International Organization for Standardization under ISO 27001, and the latest one being 2013 version. The process talks about that I have my challenges, which could be internal challenges, it could be an external challenges, it could depend on the dependencies, need to need by the stakeholders, needs of the stakeholders, which includes your employees, your customers, your vendors, and how do you take those postures. And then you use these to understand the organization in a better perspective, and then understand the risk associated with these kind of perspective. These are not financial risks; these are security risks, which can cause insecurity due to various threats or vulnerability which are present within the system, banking system that is built into space. Obviously, when you analyze this, you are depending on the people, process, technology, as I mentioned. So you build people controls. When I say people control, you look at, for instance, the identity of the person, a vendor identification, a supplier identification, an employee identification, a customer identifications, etc. Customer identification is also mandated by the regulators such as RBI, so that you have that. Human person identification is brought in by the Government of India under Aadhaar, where you have the Aadhaar card to put that in place. The person's dependence or the location where he stays comes from various other aspects. So you gather all those things which are put into the Aadhaar. So you have you can establish an identity of the customer, employee, or the vendors based on these combinations. Then you also look at what are the types of access that you need to provision for different user group. A customer will look at certain things that is there on day-to-day transactions, right from account opening to account operations, and then any transaction that he does from in a mall or in ATM, procuring cash or making payment in any of those places using his mobile phone or any other devices or laptops, etc. So these transactions have to get reflected, which is actually getting reflected through the net. And there are areas where if the identification of the person is misused by somebody else, the system will not know. So what mechanism do we have? So we create awareness among customers that such things are possible, what are their do's, what are their don'ts, put them into place. Then you look at the next level of insecurity from the customer, which is carrying out a transaction and reversing those transactions, which could also be a challenge, which could also affect their way of working, etc. So again, you look at some process established, and all these processes are depending on the policy governing the bank. So the bank therefore should have an apex security policy which tells that what is their intention, what do they want to achieve in terms of security to safeguard the insecurities and other things. Then comes the next thing that there is the adherence to good practices from the processes. So as I mentioned, ISO 27001 also addresses operational security. When you talk about operational security, it looks at goes one step beyond the identity of the person who is using the system. It looks at access control on need to know basis, need to do basis, etc. So access control provisioning is done, identity management provisioning is done, access control provisioning is done. So based on that, the internal employees have access to certain things which they are supposed to, so that they are able to provide services to the customers more effectively and more efficiently. From the customer perspective, your access comes from some kind of authentication mechanism, that who am I, you check with them, what am I going to do, what is my area of interest, and those things you check through your application and then allow the person to access. The same access is also translated into or implemented into the databases, so that database understands that whether it is permissible to for a particular information under read-only mode or editable mode or what you call update mode or append mode, etc. so that they are able to work on those things. The third area of security comes in when you pick something from the vendor, some technology from the vendor. You have to do what is called as a verification validation of the application, verification validation of the hardware. So you call for multiple vendors to maybe through tender or something like that, and you have to have a due diligence to check whether it meets with the compliance requirement. Any specific devices, for instance radiation dependency or internet bandwidth dependency or the application power supply dependency, right, and spare power supplies such as UPS and gensets and other kind of things which are required to ensure that the technology is moving up. And technology also supports the premises area, which means through a building management system you look at the entry controls, you look at the fire controls, you look at the safety areas. They are all on the administrative areas. Then you have the attendance, you have the people access to different areas, restricted areas and unrestricted areas. They all can be put into place through this control mechanism. Then in the actual application front, the banking products and services front, you look at where the servers are hosted, who are monitoring these server activities, how are these server activities are done, what is the end of day activity, what is the end of week activity, what are the end of month activity, are they happening in the right perspective, are enough background, are the backups taken so that they are all taken care of and put them into place. And if you have the right kind of backups taken, then in case of any emergency you will be able to reuse it or upload it back so that the customer services are not impacted or affected in that area. So putting all these risks, taking all these risks into consideration, it's very important for one to holistically think of putting these basics into place. So having given a broad perspective of these things, how do one get into actual implementation or situation? So when you recruit an employee, you carry out a background check. Background check could be internal, background check could be a third party verifier, so that you know that what was the history of the person. It's not the experience check. Experience check is anyway when you're doing the functional group will take care of those experience check and other things, but the human resource or the admin can look for due diligence on those kind of background check. Having taken the person into background check, you also provide him identity, you provide access capabilities, the logical access capabilities, the physical access capabilities, and the other areas that he or she are going to deliver or use the infrastructure information pertaining to the bank towards the customer and reportings to the regulators. So there could be sensitive information, customer sensitive information, there could be what you call organization sensitive information, there could be bank related sensitive information, regulatory related information, finance related information. All these things need to be safeguarded. So you may have to think what kind of technological mechanism that could be used. Maybe encryption is one of them, right? Or any crypto combinations could be one of them. So you look at those kind of combinations and put them into place. The next thing that comes in the area is that obviously when you put these things into place, you build enhanced customer confidence. If you are able to enhance customer confidence, you have more customers trusting your bank, and so the operations goes more smoothly. Since there is greater reliability on the operations, you also have greater reliability on the employees, and between the competitors, the growth factor also contributes to the bank's financials. So therefore, the productivity and capability of delivering the products and services to customer also gets enhanced. Having said this, in a day-to-day situation in a typical bank, you have a lot of people who talk about security. They say so and so has hacked, so and so has done this, so and so events have taken place in some bank, so and so incidents have taken place, which has caused demurrages, which has caused loss, which has caused challenges, which has brought in customer lowering the customer confidence, etc. So there is a lot of learning and unlearning to be done. Do we get into overprotection? Do we get into right protection, or do we get into the under protection? Is cost cutting, is security is more dependent on cost cutting area, or are you going to put them into what is the right kind of a combination? The right kind of combination, mix match, comes from understanding your business environment. Where are you located? Which part of geography you are located? What is your reach? What type of customer are you providing services? Are you into an agricultural area? Are you talking about small sectors, tradesmen, businessmen? Are you talking about weavers and those kind of people? Are you addressing an urban area? Are you looking at some governmental finance remittances, etc., statutory remittances? So depending on the area, your crowd also, your customer crowd also changes, and depending on that, your customer requirement of security level requirement for the customer also changes. So having understood this, you will plan that what is the exact combination that you will use, what kind of tool, right? The basics anyway remain. You have a good network configuration where you will have the setup for routers, firewalls and other things. You may outsource, in case you outsource the entire activity of IT, then you have to have a mechanism to monitor, so that the monitoring control will ensure that what you desire is what you get from the outsourced partner. And if you are monitoring yourself, then how do you, what do you do and how do you do on these areas? What kind of daily work that you do? What is the morning work that you do? What is the end of day work that you do? What is the 24/7 activities that you leave it on the system, and weekend activities that you leave it in the system? Makes a lot of things. So you identify them and put them into place. So in this part of it has to be understood based on your environment, and not copy from the other branch, other bank or other organization or industry that one does. As I mentioned, it's more depending on the element called trust. So you look at trust, governance and engagement of those kind of situations, right? And therefore you look at relearning of resizing your security requirement and then put them into place. So you have the right budget plan for every year and invest those kind of budget. It's an investment, it is not an expense. Security is not an expense, it's supposed to be taken as an investment, so that you are able to take care of your protection, peripheral protection, operational protection, people protections and customer interest protections, right? So this will get into the primary area of safeguards. Then comes the next part, that we are addressable to regulators. So when you talk about regulators, Government of India is one, RBI is one, SEBI is one. So you have multiple regulators who are involved in different kind of things. Underwriting banks, if we are covering insurance areas, IRDA and all those kind of things gets into place. So first thing that one has to do is to understand what are the list of regulatory requirements that you need to fulfill, right from Shops and Establishment Act to fulfillment of RBI and Finance Ministry's requirement. Having identified this, you look at that who is accountable for each of those activities. Somewhere the admin would be responsible, somewhere HR would be responsible, human resource would be responsible, somewhere the learning and development would be responsible, somewhere the operations would be, banking operations team would be responsible, and for some the customer would be accountable and responsible, and for some you may have the IT infrastructure or the CTO or the COO or the CEO would be responsible for areas. So you need to bring in what is called as due care and due diligence into the security framework to enhance, to ensure that regulatory things are addressed. Now, what is this due care and due diligence all about when it comes to security? When we say due care, it is at the time of doing something. How you ensure that people care on what they are supposed to do. What are the carefulness that they do? What are the carelessness that they should avoid? What are the carefulness that they should do so that they are able to achieve those objectives? due diligence is in the planning phase. So before some activities are carried out, you actually plan the processes, put activities, put procedures in place so that people adhere to those things, so that mistakes do not occur. So before occurrence, what you do is more of a due diligence. For instance, background check of an employee is a due diligence part of it. While the employee is in operations and monitoring the performance of the checking those things is more a due care kind of a phenomenon. Same is applicable for an application check, verification, validation of the code, code review and code this thing. If it is outsourced, you check with the vendor through contract that how these have been verified and validated so that it meets the purpose of that bank. They become the due diligence part of it. And due care part of it is you have a mechanism of establishing a network operating center. You have a mechanism of establishing security operating center. Both these things could be outsourced or could be in-house, right? So that you are able to monitor and know that what has gone wrong in a network or what has gone wrong in an application that is providing service to the customer, where any customer complaints have come, any customer duplications or an act which transactions have failed kind of a thing are monitored and then reported, so that actions are taken as soon as possible to minimize any theft or loss or damage that can occur in a banking system or the thing. So this is where the need for due diligence and due care come into scene. The next thing that comes is understanding more about threats and vulnerabilities. When we say, well, when you have spent this money on people, when you have spent this money on protecting the infrastructure, and when you have spent money on protecting the applications and databases, when you have outsourced various kinds of devices and equipments and other things that are there, there is a need for constantly understanding that what are the strengths of these devices and what are the weaknesses of these devices. If we are depending on a computer monitor or a user desktop or a mobile phone, depending on its strengths, that it has a mechanism to touch internet and touch the bank and fulfill desired transactions remotely. Having said this, it's important to understand that what is the limitation of these devices. For instance, a mobile device can be handled by somebody else. It may have a pre-saved user ID password, so the person may use it and can have it. Similar thing can happen in an ATM. You have inserted the card is stuck, and you leave the place forgetting the card. The next guy comes, he sees the screen in open space, he accesses it, drains the money off, and then takes the card off and then comes back. Or it could be that he put a small jammer, or he has inserted some kind of a USB for recording what's happening, etc. And all these are possible and feasible. So therefore, the challenges of identifying what is the deficiencies that are there in these processes, whether it's a human process, whether it's a technology process, whether it's a device area, what are the weaknesses that are there, and so that we know that if these weaknesses exist, what is the probability that these weaknesses could be exploited by somebody else outside or by an insider. If we are able to understand this extent of vulnerability, then we know that how to plug in, what to plug in, when to plug in, where to plug in, etc. using different type of controls. You will also know that threats are unavoidable. Threats could be a technical threat, threats could be people related, that could be inherent into this thing, it could be an external or internal, right, which can actually exploit the weaknesses or vulnerabilities that you identified because of the knowledge gained over a short period of time or a long period of time, so that the intruder is able to intrude into the system and cause a deficiency in the value creation activity of the bank. And therefore, the financials can have a serious impact on this thing. So one needs to really have a mechanism to use an external advisor or a consultant to carry out a periodic assessment of the process that you have implemented for security. Maybe it's every month, different areas, and over a period of 1 year, cover all the areas of insecurities, all the areas of security requirement based on the standards. You also fulfill the compliance requirement, governance requirement, report to the management, so that any corrective actions are there, the relevant management can take action and fulfill those requirements. And then, so therefore, you need to look at threats and vulnerability addressal system. You need to ensure that you have you are depending on proper kind of audits carried out by external assessor and internal assessor. Internal assessor could be outsourced, and it is good to use different auditors for different period of time, different assessors for different period of time, because each one will bring in their areas of expertise in terms of security, so that the bank holistically knows how much they are protected, where do they stand, and how do they stand. And finally, I want to share with you that will information security implementation help in NPA management of a bank? Yes, it will. It is not directly related, but it has a direct impact in terms of managing your NPA. What is this impact? For instance, if an incident takes place, obviously the customer's confidence is gone, and if customer confidence is gone, they would move to another bank. So you will have non-productive assets which will remain because they are not getting utilized. More and more customers are moving away from the bank. But if you have a good posture of information security, it builds a lot of confidence that you know your processes are in control, your people are in control, your infrastructure applications are in control. So the reliability level and the trust level of the customer and the employees, in depending on the banking operations or products and services, gets enhanced. If that gets enhanced, automatically the non-productive assets churn out to be a productive asset, and they churn out for bringing this thing. So therefore, an InfoSec definitely contributes to the NPA management indirectly from this perspective, right? Let me share quickly on the first thing that we mentioned about the human control. In human control, we look at what is called as before employment, during employment, and upon termination. These are three different phases. Before employment, we look at what is called as doing a background check on the person. As I mentioned earlier, it's best to have a third-party organization to carry out this due diligence and then take them. Before this thing, you also talk about the organization's policy, procedures, handbook of HR, all those things are handed over. The intent is to safeguard the interest of the banking function. With information technology in place, you have a mechanism to put it on the portal, web portal, where the employee can access the portal, understand the requirement of the organization, policy of the organization, and then finally, after understanding the policy of the organization, including the information security policy, they sign off to agree on the confidentiality requirement of the organization, which is called as non-disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement. A non-disclosure agreement is between an employee and the bank, and confidentiality agreement is between two entities like your vendor and the bank, right? They both are slightly different in each other. An employee can, once he signs, once he is onboarded, you put him onto learning and development so that the person is able to work on the safeguards that are required in the day-to-day activity of the organization. What he has to understudy from the seniors, what he has to understudy from peers, what he has to understudy from the from the exposures or probability that can occur in a customer facing situations, and also the regulatory fulfillment of those things. So this becomes a very vital part during this thing. There's also a need for monitoring the activities that the person is carrying out within the organization. When you monitor, what we mean is, what is the person's access right? What kind of access mechanism that has been provisioned in the access management system for a particular employee who has been onboarded? And then, is it working as per the requirement of the bank's functionality? As I mentioned, is it on what is its role function? What is the responsibility that he has to fulfill? What is the appropriate access levels that has to be assigned to the person, so that he is able to fulfill his responsibilities, so that he is able to meet with the roles, and any deviation that occurs in non-fulfillment of his role or responsibility through the usage of technology could mean lack of accountability. So it is very important that we identify through the control system framework and accountability for the individual. When we terminate the person or transfer the person, the existing user ID has to be taken off, and the new user ID or other new user levels have to be configured, so that the person, when he is transferred, is able to access those things and definitely not able to access what was his previous role function, right? Unless it is required by the present role function. So these are some of the key things that one has to really put it in place. If he is not with the organization, then accordingly you should be able to withdraw his identity card, you should be able to withdraw his access controls, you should be able to ensure that he is not carrying any IPR related information with him, so that which is not misused in the days to come, knowingly or unknowingly. So this mechanism of addressing this is very important. The process should also have, for any act that is not acceptable by the organization in accordance with the policy, should be appropriately responded to by the organization. And therefore, you look at what is the type of punishment or penalty or things that we need to levy on the person for act which has affected the security of the organization. So depending on the nature of security breach, one has to do that. Now the question that comes is, do we inform the authorities, regulatory authorities or public authorities in case of this? That would depend on the nature of breach the employee has carried out, right? So one has to look at these aspects from the control perspective. From the operation perspective, one needs to get into minute detail of, first is the network aspect of it. When you talk about network, who are the network service provider? How is the network architected? What are the points of vulnerability? What are the devices connected in this network? What are the IP addresses of various servers? What are the IP addresses of the user devices, maybe laptop, maybe mobile, whatever it is? And then what are the permissible types of transactions that each of these devices are allowed to? So have we configured the thing in the right perspective is very important. Have we configured the firewall accordingly? Are we configured the router accordingly? So an assessment of the network diagram and the actual implementation of this network needs to be assessed, and find out these mismatches, and then either correct the present diagram or correct the action that has been implemented, which is not supposed to be as per the network plan or network diagram that has been implemented. So this is possible only if you have a periodic surveillance of this particular thing, and which necessitates, as I mentioned, engaging certified auditors, engaging qualified auditors to assess network. This network assessment has to be carried out periodically so that the organization's network posture is also safe and sound, meets with the purpose for which it has been implemented. Then comes the application area, where you look at the vendor who has supplied the application, you test them. Now when you do the test, you look at the what is called as there are multiple levels of testing: unit testing, then the integration testing, then the implementation testing, and finally the system testing, so that you know how this has been implemented. And that application, you will also look for any pseudocodes, unwanted redundancy codes, or any other thing that are possible, or any other open stubs and drivers which have been left into the application, so that they should not be misused or later on causing serious threat to the banking function. So an application review is to be carried out by an expert from the application review area who needs to be put in place. It's also good to have a periodic application reviewer carrying out the review. This is because, once in a year maybe, this is because you may have over a period of time, there might have been necessity of, based on customer complaints or customer suggestions, some patches added to the application. When these applications are maintained during this patch addition, there is a possibility that somebody has added code which are called Trojans. These Trojans can cause some kind of a, during certain instances, they get activated and cause serious problem. You can also make provision for changing the access right, so that the hacker could actually penetrate the system, alter, modify or destroy your system, which can cause serious damage to your banking and financial product and services which are due for this particular area. So therefore, a network assessment becomes very important. Network assessment is generally carried out using a network operating center. A third-party network operating center is always better, because they know exactly what they are monitoring. For that, they will use all the devices that are in the network, IP addresses of those networks, and monitor them in an active mode as well as passive mode. An active mode monitoring will help in identifying the problems immediately as and when it occurs. Whereas in the absent one, or this one, you will be able to identify when an incident is detected or event is detected, and you trace back, and then you identify, yes, this is what was the incident, and we need to we plug in those things with evidences and take appropriate action for punishing or penalizing the person involved in those kind of areas. So they become another important area that comes into place. You also add what is called as regular updates and upgrades to the network. Updates would mean patch updates in firewall or in router or any other devices in the network area. Upgrades would probably mean that you worked on probably your CAT catalog 5 or catalog 5A, 5B, or catalog 6 or 6A or 6B kind of a thing. So obviously you need to, when you are upgrading this, you also need to say why are we upgrading it, how are we upgrading it, and what are the devices that have been moved into such upgrades. For example, you move into fiber optic area, in addition to your copper wires, you may go for Cat 6 B upgrade, and then when you have already moved into such Cat 6 upgrades, you will ensure that they are all taken care of in the right perspective. So you need to check that where all these are being used, how are these being used, and who is the person who will look at these kind of combinations and put them into the right place. So are we updating our network diagram in accordance to what we have physically updated? A mismatch between the network diagram and the actual network needs to be reviewed on a periodic basis, at least once in 3 months, so that you are able to take corrective action to fix such problems, right? And then that would take care of those kind of requirements. Then comes the database areas. Again, in database, what is the volume of data that is being stored? Where are we storing? How are we storing? What happens to the sizing of database over a period of time? What kind of backups are we taking? And where are we retaining these backups? So that in case of need or emergency, one should be able to bring it back and create necessary what you call usage of those things or upload into the system so that one is able to work on those kind of combinations. Next comes the for all these things, be it network, be it database, be it application, where we are enabling the transactions, you re-verify the number of users at any given point of time. And also, along with number of users, who are the authorized users who have been authenticated to use a particular service, banking service. You also verify the number of users who have actually accessed and missed on these kind of situations and ensure that they are also taken care of. Right? So you have the mechanism to analyze the monitored information and take corrective actions on time-to-time basis so that you are able to control the transaction infrastructure. You also look at what is the present user ID. Have you taken out all those user IDs who are past, who are not relevant for the present this thing? So when you are carrying out this periodic review, you will ensure that these are also addressed. Certain things will be purged, certain things will be existing, certain things will be uploaded, certain things will be downloaded. Then you also look at the user ID of the customers who are into this system and how they are going to ensure that they are using the passwords. Luckily, we also have what is called as learnings from the regulators, what do's and don'ts have to be shared with the organization, and they are able to put that in place so that your customers are equipped with the do's and don'ts. The intent of providing this is to prevent an act which will disturb the ecosystem of the security ecosystem of the bank. In case a customer breaches these do's and don'ts, it is clearly evident that he has breached the security requirement, and therefore it takes them to the block of intended users who have caused, users who have caused intended insecurity to the operations, and therefore they are punishable under law. So it's the next level to know that whether you want to take it to the judiciary level or not take it into judiciary level. The other thing that comes is bank uses card, be it debit card or credit card or whatever it is, or a temporary forex card, any of those kind of things. It is by now that these cards are standardized by the regulators so that a bank uses the right kind of card for doing that. Now, the next thing that comes in with the card is, have you created a user awareness in usage of these cards? Right? For instance, it has definitely embedded 16-digit numbers. It also has a 3-digit or 6-digit number, which is again telling that what card it is, where it is from, who is the person who is carrying out the bridging the user with the bank in terms of those things. So you will know exactly where the failure has taken place, and you will be able to trace back to know where the problem has evolved and then put them into place. So therefore, one needs to look at these risk factors and put them into place. So in the operation control, it's very important that one needs to look at have we taken care of the infrastructure in terms of network, in terms of application, in terms of software, in terms of databases, in terms of user management, and therefore how are we managing this particular thing or monitoring these things through third-party service providers. A third-party service providers like a network operating center would actually look at take the IP address from the server to the user group of the organization to the end user. and would be able to monitor the normal activities in a network operating center. It's a 24/7 monitoring and would be able to know that what are the deviations that have taken place during the course of monitoring and send alerts to the user or to the bank or to both or to regulator depending on how they have been configured so that they are pitched in the right perspective. Okay, coming back to network operating center, they would monitor, they will give you end of day reports. Based on the end of day report, you will know what exactly has to be done. They also send the alerts to end users, alerts to the banking, appropriate banking staff, so that relevant corrections can be taken, relevant preventive actions can be taken, or withhold the card or transactions of that particular person subsequently, or withhold the mobile, or get into those kind of things which are happening, or understand the ATM and take corrective action on the ATM that is part of the network or whatever it is. You also have security operating center which will monitor the activities that are carried out, which are the apps and the applications that are carried out, and then ensure that they are monitored and correlate those things with respect to the combination of network and the application that is used, and thereby identify that whether there is a intentional breach or an unintentional breach. All unintentional breach will go for relearning, learning and development. All intentional breach can be punished as per the organization's policy or governmental policy or the regulator's guidelines on penalties or punishments that are provisioned in the course of activities. With this, I would like to close my session. Should there be any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.